Good morning, Crystal Legends. It's an episode of Insight where we talk about all things going on in Eastern Carolina and different issues. And we get to speak with different people every week. So for everyone watching and listening, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Darrell Ange, and I'm here with NC Stop Human Trafficking. Mm-hmm. I am brand new. I just came on with them a few months ago.
Okay. And tell everyone who you are.
I am Liz Liles. I am the founder of Daughters of Worth. Started the organization in 2015.
Okay. What made you want to start that?
I was actually serving with another organization at the time when I had moved into Greenville and was serving about 65 youth and children.
Wow.
And after beginning to develop relationships with a lot of the girls that were there, began to have little girls come to me and share their stories. And so as I began to look out to see what resources were available and what agencies were available to serve, I found that there was a gap in service. And so I started Daughters of Worth as a direct response to make certain that the girls of our community have a safe space and that they're getting the direct services that they need. And
I want to reiterate that this is local. This is not, because I think a lot of people always think that this is a movie. This is something you hear about. This isn't in my community. So, these situations are happening often locally.
Absolutely.
There's a big misconception. There's a big misunderstanding. There's confusion of terminology.
Sure.
When people hear human trafficking, they correlate that with human smuggling. So human smuggling is a crime against a country. Human trafficking is a crime against an individual. And trafficking being defined as either having to perform work or a commercial sex act by means of force, fraud, or coercion.
It's difficult to realize that it is happening in our backyard, that, this is a very real thing. So what kinds of services do you offer, and how does someone get connected with either of you as far as, getting the help they need, and what does it look like from there?
So with our agency, we are often the first phone call. When a girl is under a pimp, she's wanting to get out. We do everything from safety planning and actually going into that trap house, going into that motel, assisting her with a safe exit through our operation relocation team. We're going to provide her with all the basic needs that she's going to need. So her emergency shelter, food, medical care, clothing, hygiene items, everything that she can possibly need. Documentation recovery, because a lot of times those documents have been confiscated by the trafficker.
Okay.
We're going to also provide her with care coordination and case management, trauma-informed mental health services. And then we conduct national relocations throughout the country, partnering with the different agencies, making certain that we can get her safe. We also provide prevention education as well, serving about 500 girls per month in 25 different locations throughout 3 counties. So a lot of times what we're doing is going into the school system as well and conducting assessments and screenings, providing that prevention education. So girls can connect with us through the school system, as well as survivors that can connect with us directly, or those who may need assistance directly through our website or contacting us directly through text message.
What 3 counties are those that you're currently working with the school systems?
We are currently in Pitt, Beaufort, and Martin counties, but that's expanding this year.
Can they go to a school counselor and let them know, or how do you go about helping that? Because then it's their family that's doing this, and that adds a whole nother level of like red tape. I mean, how does that child feel comfortable enough to know that you're really going to be able to get them out of that house, since it could be the
1 in 6
the parent, you know what I mean?
1 in 6 traffickers
Yeah.
have a blood relation.
Is related. That's horrible. Tell everyone what you're doing with NC Stop Human Trafficking.
So what we do is I like to think of us as a hub. We are not a direct service provider, but we bring all the direct service providers to the table. It's kind of a collaborative body. And that's everything from healthcare to law enforcement to, of course, organizations like Daughters of Worth, social services, to make sure that anyone that could potentially touch a victim, that it's cohesive. So there's never a gap, because when there's a gap, you lose them.
What are, not to put you on the spot, but you mentioned 1 in 6 are relatives. What
Correct.
are some of the other maybe statistics that I think, again, people don't think it's our communities. They don't think it's going on. But, what are some of the other things that, to make people realize this is here this is real and it's much more prevalent than you think?
Okay, you asked for it. So
I know it's going to be a horrible answer, but
nationally, the average age that trafficking starts is 12. In North
I have a 12-year-old.
In North Carolina, it's 14.
That's insane.
And most of the time, we've seen cases where it's happening in the home, but sometimes with the nature of the trafficking, especially when there's older siblings involved, parents are unaware. Because again, these are our kids.
Right.
This isn't some movie. This isn't Sound of Freedom. Those things happen more in other countries. This could be your neighbor. This could be your daughter. The recruiting tools are getting smarter. The recruiters are getting smarter. Watch what your kids are doing online.
I was going to say, what are some of the ways that they're getting smarter? What are some of the things that we as parents need to be looking for other than, blatant obvious?
I just returned from Washington, D.C. We had our global summit, and the number one recruiting tool is Roblox.
Okay.
It looks harmless. It's building stuff. It's educational. But the traffickers a lot of times are not who they appear to be on the screen.
They start building relationships.
Correct.
With their friend online.
Right. And there's always usually some form of vulnerability. That's what they look for. That's what they prey on.
Have you seen that a lot with the Roblox or other video games or?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of times we have that image of like Taken with Liam Neeson or The Sound of Freedom, and we have this image of the kidnapping in the white van, and so a lot of people are kind of looking for
like broad
that
daylight,
image.
like
exactly,
the
that's going to snatch you up and take you and traffic you. That may happen in 1 to 2% of cases. We've had very, very few. But the majority of these cases are going to take place in spaces where these kids, these youth, even these adults with people that they love and trust. It's a $150 billion industry that I refer to as the business model of the streets. They are incredibly intentional with how they're going to solicit. They're going to look for the vulnerable. They're going to look for those who are homeless and who are transitioning out of foster care. They're experiencing economic hardship. English is not the primary language that has undocumented or substance use disorder. They're going to be looking for the LGBTQIA. They're going to be looking for the runaways, for those who have no family, no support system. You just add all of these different dynamics into play, and there are specific tools that traffickers have. There are conferences that are held every year.
Conferences for trackers?
There are books. There's dark psychology classes and books that are written that tell them exactly verbatim in the same way that if you were to create a business. And so they have created this industry and know exactly how to go in, how to build relationships. And so these young ladies, and I refer to girls because we're daughters of worth and serve young ladies and women, they are being trafficked through the people that they love the most.
So what were some things that parents, that are present and, trying to avoid this sort of thing happening to their kids, what are things that they should look out for?
I think change in behavior is going to be something that you're going to look out for girls, specifically change in their dress. If they begin to dress more in a sexualized manner, if you're finding that they are sending nude photos. If you're finding that there are people involved in their life who primarily have not been there before, have an older boyfriend, truancy is going to be another huge factor. Kids who are missing a lot of school, that just a sudden change in their whole attitude, demeanor, may have coming home with gifts, coming home with lots of money. Some are even branded.
Branded.
Yes. And so a lot of times we'll find that we're finding that they're moving away from that just a little bit, but we have found that there are obviously victims who have been branded.
Are we tattooing or are we burning?
A tattoo.
Okay.
Both.
Both, yeah.
Jeez. What are some things that, we haven't talked so far about that you think that the, general population out here needs to be aware of or familiarize ourselves with that you two in your lines of work now are familiar with that the average person isn't familiar with?
Well, like I said earlier, trafficking is defined by force, fraud, or coercion. And traffickers are extremely smart. They're business people. I think with the fraud, some of the most frustrating is they develop a strategic emotional bond with the victims that they believe that they're in love.
Really?
And they're good at it because it is fraudulent. And then I just need you to do this one thing, this one time, and that's all. And by that time, a lot of times drugs are involved, and that's kind of the gateway to get, because that's just a control. That's just a control mechanism. And, if you were to ask, no, they help me out. I'm the bad one. They're helping. They're the ones making sure that I've got clothes, or making sure the ones that I have, a place to stay. They're taking care of me. I'm the one that has the problem. They don't realize that they have that problem because they have been brought into it.
I think the other piece that's really important to note is that we have this image of traffickers being men. Traffickers can also be women. And so we have seen that quite a bit as well. And I always, in every opportunity that I have to share, as we can talk about the vulnerabilities of the victims and we can talk about the traffickers and how they operate, the reality is that in order to have a $150 billion industry, you have to have a demand. And so one of the questions that often comes into play is, why don't they just leave, or why don't they get out? And I think it's really important to just note and for people to understand that when we're talking about who the people are who are buying our girls and our boys and young men and women, these are people who are coming from very high-level positions of power and authority in our communities.
I do want to mention, and this is by way of more of our side of things. Human trafficking is a very broad subject, very broad topic. We automatically go to the girls because that is primarily the major victims, girls and young boys. But there's also the worker aspect. Crystal, there's a tremendous amount of human trafficking that goes on in farms in this area for forced labor. It happens in farms. It happens in landscaping companies. It happens in restaurants.
Almost like slave-like situations?
In nail salons. If you're in a nail salon and everything's all smiles and sunshine and rainbows, and then all of a sudden another language, and it's obviously not sunshine and rainbows, it's a red flag. If you look and there's evidence that people are sleeping where they're working, it's a red flag. But those are also that's also ways that human trafficking occurs in our area that goes underreported. Go to our website. It's NC Stop Human Trafficking.org, and there's all of our links, our YouTube channels. There are stories right here in our area. These aren't national stories. These are in our areas. We're about to celebrate our 15th anniversary.
Nice.
On our website, one of our big annual event, Barbecue, Bluegrass, and Brews, coming up on October 10th. Yeah, go check us out. The Steel Shakers are going to be there, so it'll be a good time and a great way to support NC Stop.
All right, wonderful. And please give out your website information again as well.
Yes, it's daughtersofworth.org.
All right. Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much for the
Crystal.
opportunity.